I really do appreciate the opportunity to be part of the discussion here, and the U.S. government, represented by Undersecretary Hormats, Secretary Kerry, and President Obama, really believe that innovation in a global way is really critical to the 21st century. So President Obama, when he talked about our innovation agenda, talked about how innovation is critical to the 21st century. But the fact of the matter is innovation's been critical to us throughout our history, starting with Ben Franklin. And Walter Isaacson wrote a book about Ben Franklin, and he bookended that with a book about Steve Jobs, but I think it really indicates how important innovation is to the U.S. culture. What I think is different now is how global everything is, how intertwined our agendas are, and how our future is so interlinked with all of your futures. And for the United States, if we want to be competitive globally, if we need to foster bilateral relationships, we need to work together to enhance both of our agendas. So really, the Western Hemispheres, the hemispheres we live in, are really interconnected in a way that is not true anyplace else in the world for us. 50 million Hispanics exist in the United States, and those interrelationships are really critical to all of our success. So being here today, being part of that, your agenda, and as John said, maybe it should be a hemisphere agenda, is really critical for success. So we are really interested in working together to foster those relationships, to help you be successful, and to make those connections. So really, there's three areas I think we can work together on. One is sustaining our global competitiveness. Second is enhancing bilateral and multilateral cooperation. And the third is really enabling economic development overall through doing that. Undersecretary Hormats talked about the importance of creating a strong regulatory environment, and I'd like to just highlight specifically the area of intellectual property and how important it is for success. Patents, trademarks, and copyrights that establish ownership of invention and provide a legal path for right holders is really critical to incent inventors to be successful. And without that type of framework, there's no way that they can really be successful. And so many innovators come to the United States because of its robust patent and trademark infrastructure. So to the extent that you can really make that a priority, it's really critical. We talked in my little working group a couple of minutes ago about the importance of the university and private sector and government partnership. And one of the things the United States did in the 1980s is established a law called the Bayh-Dole Act, which previous to that, any ownership of government R&D was owned by the government, even if the university was doing it. The Bayh-Dole Act gave that rights to the universities, and that created the whole licensing out of technologies. For example, Google came from that environment. So I bring that up as one example, but I think it's really important that all of you look at the entire intellectual property framework and your whole legal framework to make sure that you have the best practices to enable the right type of environment for innovators to be successful. And when you look at the intellectual property environment, you need to look at innovation not just in technology, but in all the aspects of innovation. When I was coming in, I was talking to one of you about the shipping industry and how the container has made such a difference to the effectiveness of the shipping industry. I mean, that's just an example of innovation in process that's really important and can really change the dynamics of industries. Another example is Tata Nano, which is a $2,500 car in India, and that's truly made been an enormous success. And really, they looked at innovations on technology components, manufacturing processes, supply chain, and design. So really, when you look at how to innovate, you need to look very, very broadly for opportunities. And I think particularly in Latin America, looking at innovation clusters in areas that you're successful already, like mining, and trying to make innovations in process is as important as looking at what you can do in the IT industry, for example. So we talked a lot about the enabling environment and the enabling legal environment. It's as important to also talk about what we need to do to create ecosystems that take invention and commercialize them. And there's been a lot of discussion on that, and I hope as we get to the how part of this, we'll talk more about this. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that the U.S. government's been doing to enable that. And they're really in three areas. One is in capacity building, and that's in having the skills and the training and the mentorship so that entrepreneurs and innovators can be successful. The second is in the area of networking, which is networking to resources, but particularly to the global marketplace, so that people can grow their companies beyond the region and make them globally successful. And the third area is access to capital, and that all came out on some of these questions you had in terms of what the high priority areas are. One of the things that has been an innovation in capacity building has really been incubators and accelerators, and there's a major expansion of incubators and accelerators. When I was in Silicon Valley in the early 90s, they were just beginning, but now they're all over the place and they're all over the world. One of the things that is happening in Silicon Valley is international people are coming to Silicon Valley to do incubation, and countries actually have incubators in Silicon Valley, and places like Plug and Play and 500 Startups have areas within their incubators and accelerators that people can come and incubate in. And of course, all over the world there's incubators and accelerators. In fact, we're sitting in one right now. So I think that this allows a really intense environment for people to be successful, and so I think looking at how you can do more, both in terms of doing exchanges internationally and doing it within your country, is one area that can be really looked at. The second area I talked about was networking and access to global markets. And I think that there's some great examples of how that can be done. I mean, the incubators are one of them. Another is what Startup-Chile, we're sitting in their space right now, has done. I think is a fantastic example that I actually talk about when I go around the world in terms of how you can create better market access. I think all of you are aware of what Startup-Chile does, but just to highlight it, they provide a grant, equity-free grant to companies all around the world who want to incubate here in Chile, and then they require them to go out and evangelize and make connections all over when they're here. So this spreads a knowledge of globalization and spreads those connections. So, you know, I really applaud what's being done there. Undersecretary Hormats mentioned that the U.S. government is also involved in, on a bilateral basis, a number of collaborations. And John mentioned that I'm very involved in our U.S.-Russia Innovation Working Group. I'm also involved in what's called MUSAC, which is the Mexico-U.S. Entrepreneurship and Innovation Council that we just started. And we did it in conjunction with the new National Entrepreneurship Institute that Mexico just announced, and decided to fund with $692 million to support 300,000 entrepreneurs and 180,000 micro and SMEs to provide them funding and training and capacity building. So, you know, Mexico's really, you know, raising the bar in terms of their investment in this whole area. And in collaboration with that, the Mexico-U.S. Entrepreneurship and Innovation Council is a public-private partnership. We have private sector members and government members, and we have 7 working groups that are actively working on areas ranging from enhancing the legal framework, collaborating with the diaspora communities, promoting incubators and accelerators, supporting women's entrepreneurship, enhancing access to capital, and doing regional clusters. We, for example, just recently, a few days ago, sent a few lawyers from Silicon Valley down to work with the Mexican government, who's rewriting their financial legislation around startups to help them with that. We ran angel investor training in Mexico, because one of the areas, and I'm getting to access to capital, is that a lot of countries in Latin America and actually around the world, most of the money sits in family, in the families. The money goes down through families, and those families don't necessarily understand some of the technology-based companies that are growing up, and they would like to invest in those areas, but they really don't have the know-how. So we've been doing angel training around the world, and if any of you are interested in doing that, I can help you with some of that, to explain to family-owned businesses how they can do angel investing and make that that asset class available to them. So I think that's an area that of great potential, is to unlock that family money and make it available. Another area that we're involved in is linking the diaspora community, and Secretary Clinton announced an initiative called La Idea, which is aimed at connecting the U.S. diaspora Hispanic community with Latin America. It's involved in helping with financing and making connections and business counseling. And we even have a contest that we, if any of you are interested in, or have people in your country interested in participating in, we have a contest that's that ends in the middle of September. We give $50,000 to a U.S. entrepreneur who has a business that is connected to a Latin American business of some type. They're going to go through a competition that will end on September 20th. And if you're interested, you can go to www.laidea.us to find out more details on that. So I've highlighted a few of the initiatives that we have, the how of what we're talking about here, but I think that Secretary Hormat's talked about the what. So I'm anxious to continue through the next 2 days and hopefully be able to be part of the dialogue, and hope we can, as the United States government, can support this agenda for all of our benefit in the Western Hemispheres. So thank you very much for the opportunity.